Hey everybody, this is Jess from 4th and Birch. Today I'm going to show you how to make a hand-painted tie-dye sparkly tumbler. So this is one that I hand-painted with acrylic paint and then put a layer of epoxy with glitter in it over the top of it. This one I have here has been painted, but no seal and no epoxy. So this is what it looks like, I guess, if raw painted maybe is the word that you would use. Let me get my light down here a little better. Not the greatest light, oops. Not the greatest light, but gives you a little more detail. And the nice thing about putting epoxy, especially with glitter in it, is that if there are any imperfections, fluorescent acrylic paint can be very difficult to paint with. It's actually very transparent or see-through. So you need to get it on fairly thick to get a decent pop of color. And because of that, you end up getting, if I can feel any here, kind of like right here and right here. You know, you kind of just get little parts of paint. This here is a little blemish, probably from the base coat of the paint. In here, I had some strokes of blue that didn't exactly go in the right direction, but all of that gets blended beautifully together when you do this. So this is a perfect, I don't know if I'd say beginner project, depending on how comfortable you are with painting, but fairly beginner because it's pretty forgiving. So did my bottoms a little differently, but you have a whole lot of options that you can do. So let's see here. So I have, this is just my, let's put these bad guys out of here. This is just a white, it's actually a 30-ounce skinny from MakerFlo. It was pre-sanded because I am lazy sometimes. And then so I did not need to prep it. It was pre-prepped, but I put this primer, a flat primer. When I'm painting with acrylics, you will, glossy paints take the paint a little differently versus flat paint. When I'm using, like I said, when I'm using fluorescent paints, because of their high transparency, I actually like the flat better. It's a little, I don't know, it grabs the paint, I think, a little better than the glossy. Otherwise, the glossy you tend to just kind of smear. If you think about trying to paint maybe like a linoleum floor, that would be harder. So that's why I choose this. I can pop this out of here. This was just so I didn't get as much paint. So I didn't get as much paint on the inside of my rim. So the paints that I'm using today are new ones that I bought. I actually think I bought these at Blick Art Supply. They are Royal Langnickel Essentials. Have not used them before. And they come in a box like this. And you kind of just pick the colors that you want to use. When I do my tie-dyes, I like to kind of do in a rainbow order, but you definitely don't have to. See what you think. It's not a bad idea if you are not sure what colors you want and in what order. Just on a piece of paper or a little paper towel, something like that, you can just take a tiny bit of your color and just paint a tiny bit, and it'll give you a decent idea as to what you're looking for. So I'm going to pick some of these out here. To do the pink, which is called Rose. This one's called Pink actually. So this one's Rose. I'm going to skip the pink and I'm going to go to this more orange color, which is called Orange Yellow. I have two yellows to choose from. I have yellow and yellow medium. I actually kind of like this one better because it is lighter and it looks a little more fluorescent. I might, if this turns out to be too transparent, it doesn't show it very well, I might kind of upgrade to this medium yellow, but we'll see. I'm going to skip this lemon yellow and go to the light green. When we overlap our colors, these will blend a little bit, all of them that are next to each other, so we'll end up getting kind of this lemon yellow in between these two colors when you overlap. Like a yellow into a green, for instance, you'll get kind of a shading, blending. I guess this is the only blue and the only purple, and I'm just going to stick with those. So we're going to see, this is called blue, this is called purple. That makes it pretty easy, huh? All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is planning your design. And I like to do a spiral, and it doesn't really matter, at least to me, which way the spiral starts. You do want to leave a decent amount of room. You don't want it to be a really small spiral. I'm going to use this to point instead. You don't want it to be a super tight spiral, because you need to leave room for every single one of these colors in between. So you can start here, and then you want to get kind of big. You don't want this. I use the 5 colors, so I use the pink, orange, yellow, green, blue, and a purple. So I use the same, not the exact same paint, but I use the same type of color. So I had 6 of them here. And so this, when we come out, so we go down once, and then our second down is already on the bottom of the cup. So that you just kind of want to think, keep that in mind. And when you start coming out with that one spiral, so here's my spiral, that backside is not a spiral. It's the 2 edges of my spiral coming together to create this. So you'll see what I mean when we do it. Really, whichever way you turn it, it looks pretty decent as a tie-dye, even this seam coming up the middle. And again, on the bottom, that part is up to you. What I did here on this one is when I did my spiral, so I came down once, I came down a second time, and then when I came back up here, you kind of just act like there's a continuance, and then my third line down, when you come down here, instead of, you would think to follow this, you would want to go this way, but that's not the case. When you come down here, you actually do a half a moon backwards, and that lines up with this right here. I know that this is a little harder to see with the glitter on here because it's kind of shining off my light a little bit, but again, this is totally up to you how you want to do this. It's just something you want to think about first before you just start throwing paint on it. Some people, and I don't have one But some people just do kind of this starburst look. And they start that out right here, and they just do just the starburst. So, and you can just go out from that. So you can do that too. It does not have to be the spiral. So I'm gonna get a few things set up here so I can work on getting just a little bit of a template, almost an outline. So I will be back shortly. Okay, I'm back. So I have a pencil. You want to be very careful with whatever you use to draw on your cup. If you draw an entire line where you want your spiral, that entire line will show through your paint and you will not be able to cover it up, basically. The first one I ever did I tried and tried and tried and tried, and I ended up having to cover it with, instead of fluorescent paint, I had to grab the non-transparent tape, the opaque, not tape, excuse me, paint, the non-transparent paint, but the opaque paint, and kind of go over all my colors because it had this perfect pencil line that stuck out like a sore thumb. So you wouldn't think so, but trust me, when you get fluorescence, that will happen. So what you basically want to do, if anything, is just take tiny, tiny little dots just to show you a little bit where to go. Once you have your first color on, so mine will be pink. Once you have your first color, the rest is history. You just follow that color. So no worries after that. But again, you want to leave as many marks off of this as you can, and definitely don't make them lines. So let's see. If I start here, you can barely see that. That is all I am doing. And wherever your middle is going to be, you want that to be where your, like if this is my middle, I want my points where my curves peak, top and bottom. You want those to be on the same line, basically. So keep that in mind when you're doing your curves on the top and bottom, that you want it to be in line with that center swirl. I'm just going to speed this up for just a little bit here. It's hard for you to see what I'm mapping out anyway, but you'll see when I start putting paint on, it'll start to come together. And a couple of these are a little darker. That doesn't seem like much, but it kind of is. As I'm coming down with my paint, I'll probably erase that a little bit. As far as your paintbrushes, I typically use any of these. They don't have to be anything special. I would recommend getting a somewhat decent paintbrush, not the super cheap ones, because you don't want the little hairs, the little bristles coming off in your paint. Again, they will be noticeable as well, so you'll have to pick them out if that happens. So I think to start, I'm just going to use this one right here. This is, let's see, Nature's Touch, a number 4, Filbert. This is not imperative what you use though. You use what you would like and see how it works for you. I like to do just a little at a time. versus having it dry out. Come back here and find my center. And what you want to do is you want to hold your brush sideways if you can. So instead of painting like this, we're going to turn it sideways and pull out like that. And then what you get are the thinner brush strokes, which in a typical thing that you want to blend is not necessarily what you want to do, but in a tie-dye, you actually want to pull some of these through into the other colors. So, and this is just kind of our first layer anyway, just to kind of get a feel for where we're even going with our spiral. All right, let me actually see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Let's see if this is any better. All right, so I'm pulling away, and if you can see, let's see, where are you? Oop. There you are. Can you see that little black spot right there? That is my pencil dot, and that is going to be difficult to cover up. So, something to keep in mind. It's not that noticeable. When we put the glitter on, it's going to be much less noticeable, but just something to show you. Now I am going to let my paintbrush get somewhat dry. Because this is just our first round, and B, if we need to make any changes, it's easier to do it if we need to kind of modify. Start with my next little dot here, kind of work back up this way. And it's easy, as I was coming down here, you can see my brush strokes started to come down, 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 down. They're facing this way instead of facing kind of out. So that's another thing you want to watch. Something we can definitely fix if you don't like what it's starting to look like, but just, it's easy to do. It's easy to start coming down towards a point and your strokes start going in that direction. So I'm going to spin this just because it's easier for me. I'm headed to this one here. Thereabouts. My next one is here. Right. My next one is here. My next one is here. Another thing, you don't want your strokes to start here and come down. So you don't want to do this. You want to start here and go out, down, so towards the center, and go out. Because we're kind of making a burst look. That's looking a little messy there. Don't worry about that. My next one is about there. I'll show you again, even though I have a pretty decent glob of paint right there. Right there. That dark spot right there is my pencil line, or pencil dot. You can see my pencil dot there. You can see another one there. So you can absolutely use something like a pink colored pencil or like a yellow pencil. Like I said, you could go through and erase these as you're, as soon as you have your next one in mind, you can kind of go and erase it. That's fine. Especially if you're not going to put glitter at the end. You probably want to keep the little imperfections at a minimum. Okay, just as I say that, I try to erase this one, and it left a bigger smudge. Also, you want to make sure you don't get your little eraser marks in any wet paint. Alright, so this is the one that comes up the top, that comes off. Here's our little fake rainbow. I'll try to touch it where I don't have any paint. So our little fake comes over the top and down. We're going to say right about here. Oops. Zooming in is nice for some things, but then it's hard to keep you on screen. All right. let's see here. This next one is here. You might end up ruining any of the brushes that you use because they're not typically meant to be laid on their side like this. They're meant to be like more like this versus sideways. But as you can see, it's already getting kind of all over the place. But that is okay. It's actually good for what we want here because we do want some kind of craziness like that. Now what we're going to do, looking at the bottom here, this is where I just left off, right there. We're going to do a half moon the other direction, and we are going to meet up with it's kind of hard to describe. It doesn't have to meet anything perfect, but it ends up looking better if, like I said, you make that moon the other direction. So we're going to do that. So we're going to leave that like that. So this is our rough look. On one side you will have that kind of baseball look where they come in different angles, I guess. That's to be expected. And then those will just blend together like this. All right. I'm going to zoom back out because this is a little close for me here, because I keep getting my thing off screen. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over this again. One, to make it a little darker. Two, to make it look a little neater. This was just my, like I said, kind of my rough go around. And then also, as I'm doing this, every once in a while we're going to pull, as tie-dye does, we're going to pull just kind of a random one kind of out kind of far. And we can always go do this again later. We can come back and do the pink again if we need to. But like that will end up blending in. It looks kind of awful right now, but trust the process. That is our pink layer. All right, we'll come back with orange and I'll show you how I kind of blend some of it. And then I'll probably speed up the process after that. Orange, yellow, that's what's next. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna come the way that our pink is going to. So I was doing my strokes this way. That's where I'm gonna put my orange. So I'm gonna kind of start here. This inner loop sometimes can be a little difficult because all your colors come pretty close together. They get kind of squished in the middle. But okay. So I'm going to start well into my pink. So I want part of my stroke to be in my pink and part of it to come out onto the white. So it blends. Again, we're not leaving a ton of white in there. Remember, I still have a lot of colors to do here, so that maybe was a little too far, but we'll make it work. So in here, I have a lot less room to do my colors than say I do here. So keep that in mind with your brush strokes. So not a ton of room here. If I see an area that I missed of pink, that's maybe a little white in there, I'll get my orange in there. Because that's all part of blending. See right here, I probably could have put a little more pink there, but you know what, we'll just do orange instead. Same with the pink, or same that we did with the pink. Bring your orange out a little bit too, whenever you feel like it. Now, my colors can start getting wider here. But I'm still overlapping into my pink. But I want to pull enough of my orange out because when I come with my yellow, I'm going to overlap into my orange too. So I don't have a whole lot of room here again, so I'm going to shorten up my strokes. More overlapping, less coming out. And if you have a spot that you think, wow, maybe that's too much orange there, maybe I took over too much of my pink, come back later and put some more pink on top. No worries. This, we're not going to get all the colors in here because remember, this is kind of our fake rainbow here is coming up. So whatever colors we get to, we'll just act like they're running off the edge. I'm running a little low on room here again. And I had kind of a little hiccup here that I probably shouldn't have brought my pink so far in here, but when I end up going all the way around with my colors, my purple's going to end up there, and I will blend that out, no worries. All right, I'm going to speed up the process a little bit here. You'll see my little lightning bolt in the corner, so you know that it's not exactly real time. I don't think you need to watch me do the entire color. So first we'll just get through the orange, and then I'll speed through some of the other colors as well. If you have any questions though during any of this, please put it in the comments and I'll answer what I can. That is actually it for my orange. All right. Another thing too, you don't have to wait for your colors to be totally dry, because if I do have a little clump of orange somewhere and I swipe it with my next color, that just helps with the blending. Alright, so I think on my next few colors, I'm going to just speed up the process here so you don't have to watch the whole thing. And we'll see how it's coming about. All right, I'm going to slow it down for just a minute because I'm on my last color. I did put some white in my blue and I put some white in my purple just because they were a lot darker than the other colors and I didn't want that taking over. So when I did my blue, I left just a little space for purple because I want to blend into the blue and into the pink. So I don't actually need that much space between the two. And again, remember your blue and your purple tend to be your thickest colors, your darkest colors, I mean. So you don't want a ton on your paintbrush, you don't want big globs of it. Like, that's not even that much, but you can kind of see how that looks. So now I need to kind of come from another area and just kind of blend that more. Flip this again. And we want to really watch that we don't have a ton of white in here, so we want to bridge that gap between the blue and the pink. If you lose some pink, like I kind of lost some pink here, it kind of goes from purple into orange, we can come back and put a little pink over that. It's not going to show up extremely well because the purple's darker, but it will give us a little bit of more of a pink look. All right, so I finished up my purple, and that is what it looks like. So you get kind of the starburst effect with the swirl. You can see some of the globs of paint. I'm gonna let that dry. And again, we have that on the other one too. And when we put the sparkle with it, it'll show a little depth where those are. But you're not going to, it's not going to look like imperfections. So I'm going to let this dry fully, and then we'll come back and talk about what to do next. Welcome back. I have put this cup back on the turner. It is fully dry. I have not sealed it. This is just the paint. I let it dry overnight, although it certainly didn't need to dry that long. Acrylics dry quite quickly. You will notice also that there's a bit of a yellow tint to my entire screen, actually. I'm going to be working under a heat lamp, and the heat lamp is has just a bit of a yellow tint to it. So it does kind of change just a bit of the lighting, so you'll notice that, but you'll still be able to see everything that I'm doing. So here I'm measuring out my epoxy. I used Swiftpoxy from Tumblerpoxy brand, and I absolutely love it. This is one of the reasons I use my heat lamp. I get much better results with my Swiftpoxy if my environment is warm, and my husband would kill me if I tried to mess with the thermostat and turn up the heat in the house. So unfortunately I can't have my house at 80 degrees all the time. Wouldn't that be great for me? So instead I just chose to buy a heat lamp and hang it over while I am using my epoxy, and it works phenomenally. And it's super nice and toasty warm for me while I'm doing it, so it's a win-win. But anyway, that is the yellow tint color. So I'm going to mix up my epoxy here, and Swiftpoxy likes a nice, a pretty decent stir, a good 5 minutes of it, and a pretty hasty stir. So, excuse me. So I'm going to be off screen here. There's about a 5-minute lapse there, so I'm going to come back in screen, and my epoxy is mixed up. Next, we're going to grab the glitter that I use to put in the epoxy. It is one of my favorite glitter companies called Peachy Olive Glitters, and this is just a bottle that I put it in, so then I put tape around it, just anyway. So the name of it is Nookie. It's an opal iridescent. It's just gorgeous. It doesn't add really color to anything that you do. It picks up the colors that you have underneath it, so that's what makes it so beautiful. I'm going to put this in my epoxy, and you'll see the beautiful kind of shimmer that it gives it over the top. So that is the opal, and it's pretty fine, so you won't see big huge chunks of it. If we can get it to focus ever. There we go, a little bit. All right, we're going to stir that in. All right, time to start putting the epoxy on the cup. First, I spend a decent amount of time at the rim. This is pretty important to me. So first I do just a layer all the way around. So I have kind of a loop of epoxy around the rim. And then what I'm going to do, it's kind of hard to explain, but I'm dragging my finger over the rim. So I want a nice gob of epoxy on the inside of my epoxy, or on the inside of my cup, excuse me, on the stainless steel. So now after I did that, now I'm just moving on. But you'll see when I'm done with this, I will show you what, after it's cured, what that inner layer looks like, and you will have seen it on some of my other videos as well. It makes it so much easier for clean rims. You don't have to cut with your little razor tool, and it does a great job. So I'm just going to speed this along a little bit. Make sure to get your bottom back and forth, even it out a little bit. And then this is Swiftpoxy. I'm going to let this sit and cure for a few hours. I actually probably let this go overnight because I usually do most of my work at night, and I just don't have time to to wait for it to cure. So I'll check this again in the morning. But that is what it looks like after the epoxy. I'm going to take my handy dandy torch, Swift Epoxy does not have much for bubbles. Even if it did, this glitter would hide most of them. They would actually kind of almost blend in. But you just want to do one quick sweep one time around. That is all. If you add too much heat, it actually can cause more problems. All right, so we are back after it is cured. And I apologize for kind of the mess. I was trying to squeeze everything I could here in one screen for you in my workspace. So I have 4 of these that I've made total. And you can see the shimmer that it does over the top. We talked about the rim earlier as well. And that's what I did with my finger when I was putting the epoxy on. I just kind of dragged my finger, and you can see I have this perfect loop of epoxy all around the inside. And of course we're going to get rid of that, but the extra time that I spent putting that on there is going to make this so much easier for us to remove. Okay, so basically we're going to take a handheld Dremel and we're going to hold it at the rim, but we're going to tip it kind of up and in. So not totally flat, we're going to be up and in just like that. And we are going to cut through all the way around. So I'm going to turn my Dremel on here in just a moment. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit because you don't need to watch the entire slow process, but you do want to go fairly slowly, just short little swipes. You don't want the Dremel to get out of hand. You don't want it to get away from you. You don't want it to scratch the outside of your cup. So just short little things. What we're basically doing is we're separating that inner ring that's going to end up being garbage. We want to separate that from the epoxy on the cup that we want to keep. So I'm almost done here around. It's kind of hard to see with all the extra shavings and stuff. So let's just wipe that with a little alcohol. And I want you to see where I separated. I'm going to freeze frame here in just a moment. Right there, you can see where it's separated. That is the stainless steel peeking through. So I basically took that ring on the inside and separated it from the cup. Just a thin little line, but I made sure it went all the way around. And now I'm just going to take a dry paper towel and just get some of those shavings out of there just so we can see a little better. And then take just something sharp, any of your Cricut tools. It can be the little knife thing, it can be the little hook. And you just want to pull this away in one spot. See, it just popped away from the edge there so perfectly. And watch, this is like magic. This is so satisfying every time I do this. Ta-da! I love that. And there you go. All of that epoxy, the rest you see in there is just the shavings. All of that epoxy is out of there, and your rim is clean and it's perfect. And I love it. Now, you want to make sure that you do this. See, it's nice and smooth. You want to make sure that you do this fairly soon after the epoxy is cured. So I did this the next day. So I wouldn't say the epoxy was 100% cured. Like, for instance, I won't send out a cup until it's been sitting for like 72 hours just to make sure it's 100% cured. But if you let this cup sit with that inner lip in it of epoxy, if you let it sit for weeks, maybe a couple of mine have gone months because they set them aside and forgot I needed to clean up the rim. It will be a lot harder to get that inner ring out. It won't come out quite as softly or easily. So make sure you get on that fairly soon, and I promise it'll be like your new way to do this. All right, so now we're going to talk about how I did the spiral on one of them. The one that I painted for you earlier in my tutorial, I didn't love how my bottom turned out. If you just kind of follow my pink line here, we're following the pink, and then it comes down on the bottom, and I got kind of lost. It didn't line up with my other one, and you know what? It's okay. It's okay. Nobody's gonna notice. I'll show you another one. This one actually I did that turned out beautifully. So let's follow that pink around. Goes all the way up to the top. So it comes down. And then you see this is kind of like the baseball area that I say, like where your lines are going opposite directions. That loop connects them both on the bottom. That's what I was going for on the one that I was painting before. That's what I try to go for. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but if you kind of just, if you're making your loops around when you're doing your kind of stencil sketch out in the beginning, comes down, loops around, and then comes back. And then all the colors match up quite beautifully. So again, it's certainly not necessary to do it that way. For instance, this one, I just did like a sunburst on the bottom. That was the first one that I had ever hand painted. And then this one was one of the later ones. So again, you can do whatever you want. This is the one that didn't turn out so well, but it doesn't look so bad. I mean, nobody knows what it was supposed to look like, so, well, except now you guys and everybody on YouTube. But, so it's okay. These cups and the painting and everything is fairly forgiving, so follow your baseball line down. You can see how I have purple on the top, but I didn't have enough room to put purple all the way down in the center. That is okay too. That's just how it goes. When you have a cup that goes all the way around, your pattern's gonna have to meet at some point. So you make it work with wherever your lines are coming together. So take another look here at the sparkle and the shimmer. So these two look a little different for several reasons. I use different brand paints on both of them. And also this one I put more glitter in. Less glitter in this one, more glitter in that one. And they're different brand of paints. So, and then this one is another brand yet. This one, I'm sorry, I don't even know all the different brands, but they're all a little different. So that's where the color differences come in. So here they are. These are the 4 tumblers I've done most recently. So you can see just kind of all the little differences in all the different steps. You can more glitter, less glitter, more color, less color. The swirls are a little different, you know, whatever you like, whatever you want. I also have the 2 little wine tumblers turning on my cups. Those I did a little differently. Instead of hand painting, I took alcohol inks and I dabbed the tip of a Q-tip into them, and then I dabbed all the way around. So that's why they look a little more staccato dabbed. And I have 2 spirals, one on each side, and then I sprayed with a alcohol ink mist. So that's what I have, and I appreciate so much you guys watching. So as always, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, head to the comments. I'll answer what I can, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.